So this week we're talking about each one grow one, and as you talk about this in your small groups and go over different things that came out of the sermon or whatever else, I want you to think about this idea and how applicable it is or how accurate it is. I think it's very, very seldom that we're truly stagnant. I'm going to actually ask a question about becoming stagnant, but that we're actually stagnant where we're actually not moving. We're generally always moving either forwards or backwards. It's just like things in our school life or in our work life. We're either becoming better or worse at things. And as we talk about this, we're obviously talking about growing in our spiritual maturity and growing in our relationship with God. And so the question is, are we growing closer, more in love with God, or are we growing colder and less in love with either God or others that we are trying to love? So as you begin today to talk about this in group and to share your feelings, I want you to think of a time that you would call a moment of stagnation, a moment where you clearly remember growing colder, growing further away, becoming less into, I'm going to say church, but really it's less into God and less into that spiritual maturity and relationship. Think about a time that you became stagnant. My question is this: what are the surrounding circumstances that caused that? And how did you get over it, if in fact you got over it? Share that with you. So now that you've talked about a moment of stagnation, I want you to think back, because generally after that, hopefully, you've had a period of growth. And I want you to compare growth that you've had with the excitement and the energy that you had when you first came to know Jesus, when you first came to understand the love of God and the excitement and exuberance that comes with that. How did that experience compare with other periods of growth in your life? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? And lastly, how do we use those times to share with others who we want to help grow? I guess that's a couple of questions altogether. But discuss that in your group now. So for your last group discussion, I want you to turn to Hebrews chapter 5. And beginning in verse 11, the writer in Hebrews is, I think, trying to motivate the readers. But he says this: we have much to say about this, but it is hard to make it clear to you because you no longer try to understand. The New American Standard says you become dull of understanding. In fact, though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you the elementary truths of God's Word all over again. You need milk, not solid food. What do you think about that type of statement when we look out at a church? That's who he's talking to. He's talking to Christians, and he says, we have to start all over with the elementary teachings because you've never gotten to the solid food that you need to eat. And how many of us can relate to that, where we just kind of meander along and we continue with the milk because that's easier, and the solid food is something that's unapproachable or that's intimidating or that's overwhelming. Understanding that feeling is part of what it takes in order for us to help other people grow. Discuss that feeling of being intimidated or overwhelmed by the solid food of Hebrews chapter 5. So we're within a few weeks of Easter Sunday and the time that we have kind of focused on for us to begin inviting people to Easter service, to begin asking those questions, to begin that conversation. So this week as you leave group, I'm going to encourage you to start very intentionally having those conversations, asking people what they're doing for Easter and whether or not they're willing to come with you to enjoy an Easter service and a celebration of Jesus' resurrection. Have a good week.